Hi, I'm Amy Tuller. I'm a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator, and I'm here today to talk about healthy eating on a budget. As a dietitian, quite often people will tell me, I can't eat healthy because I can't afford to eat healthy. It's so expensive to eat healthy today. And so I love the challenge of teaching people how to make healthy food really affordable and to show you how healthy eating can actually be less expensive than eating a lot of fast food and not so nutritious food. So the first thing that we want to do is to plan ahead. We want to make sure that we have a plan so that we know what we're going to be eating for the week or for the next day. That way we can develop a shopping list and we can go shopping and make sure that we have all the foods that we need available. Quite often where people get hung up is when they don't have a plan and they're in the middle of a busy workday and suddenly they're hungry, and we all do this. We get to a point where we say, uh-oh, I have no food with me, and what am I going to eat now that I'm really hungry for lunch? So it's easy to run out and get something quickly that we would spend a lot more money on. If we have a plan, we know what we're doing ahead of time, we can prepare food ahead of time, and we can have that food with us. So that will automatically help us to save money to be prepared. When we go shopping, we want to make sure that we have a list so that we don't do a lot of impulse buying at the grocery store. We want to go into the store with our plan and our shopping list, and hopefully before we get to the store, we have researched a little bit about the sales, look at the flyers for different stores and see what items on your list are the better prices at that particular store. So you might need to go to a couple of different stores to get everything on your list, or sometimes what you can do is divide up that task amongst friends, and one person go to one store, another person might go to the bulk food store, another person might go to the warehouse store, and then we can get everything on our list at the best price. Another good idea is to not go shopping with kids. When you go shopping with kids, I know from personal experience, you spend a lot more money. So try and carve out a little bit of time to take your shopping list to the grocery store and get your shopping done by yourself so that you get just what's on your list. It will save you a lot of money. Fruits and vegetables are a really important part of our diet, and a lot of times we look at fruits and vegetables as being expensive items, so they get dropped off the list. But if you are careful and plan out your fruit and vegetable shopping, you can do it quite economically. First, look for what's in season, and in the winter in the North Country that can be a little bit difficult, but there are some fruits that are typically reasonably priced throughout the year, like apples or bananas. Or during the winter when the Florida citrus season comes in around January, that's a good time to do your citrus food. For vegetables, look for the hardier vegetables, things like root vegetables. Carrots are usually a good price during the winter, and kale and potatoes, sweet potatoes, these are generally a good price throughout the year. Another idea for fruits and vegetables is to look at the produce stand. Sometimes the prices at the produce stand can be a lot better than what you'll pay in the supermarket. If at all possible, try to grow your own in the summer and then freeze what you harvest, or do some canning of what you harvest in the fall. It doesn't take a big garden space in order to grow your own garden. You can have just a 10 by 10 plot, or maybe you might do some container gardening if you live in an apartment or if you live in town. Just having some big 10-gallon buckets or 5-gallon buckets that have tomatoes growing in them, or maybe a long planter that has some lettuces growing in it. It's very easy to grow right on the patio or right outside your door. And the flavor and the quality of the food that you get by growing your own is so much better than what you might pick up in the grocery store, which may have come from a long ways away and may have been sitting in the grocery store for a long time. So if possible, try to set up your own garden this summer. If you feel like you don't have a lot of time, once again, get a couple of friends involved and see if you could rotate a garden plot, and everybody can take a turn with watering and weeding and that sort of thing. Another idea is to look at how much money you're spending on meat. Typically, meat is the highest ticket item in our grocery cart today, and not always the healthiest source of protein. There are a lot of really healthy, inexpensive sources of protein, like eggs, for instance. Eggs are a perfect protein source, and they're quite inexpensive. You can buy them in the grocery store, you can buy them in a farm stand. A lot of people have chickens in this area, so maybe you have a neighbor who has chickens and you can get your eggs right close by. There's nothing that tastes as good as a fresh egg. So eggs are a great protein source and very inexpensive. You can use eggs for all meals. For breakfast, you might cook up an omelet or a souffle of some type, maybe just scrambled eggs. And when you do that, try and add a little bit of extra nutrition by taking whatever leftover vegetables you might have hanging around. Maybe you have a little end of an onion, or maybe you have some spinach left over that needs to be used. Whatever you have, some asparagus, throw it into your scrambled eggs or your omelet in the morning and add a little bit of extra nutrition. Eggs are a great snack. You can do deviled eggs or hard-boiled eggs. They go great in lunch boxes. They travel really well. And think about even eggs for dinner. Making an egg souffle at dinner time is very easy and inexpensive. And it's a great way to replace meat in that meal. Think about having at least a few meatless meals a week, and that will greatly reduce your grocery bill by reducing the amount of meat. Another way that you can reduce the amount of meat that you use is to think about how you use meat. Rather than just cooking up a whole steak, you could cook a smaller piece of meat, maybe some chicken or a fish fillet or some type of beef, and then slice it into small strips or chunks and use it on a salad, or cut it very thinly and fan it out on your plate to make that meat portion look larger than what it is. Some other great protein sources are beans. Today we're going to make a hummus using garbanzo beans, but you can use all kinds of different beans in all kinds of ways. You can use black beans or kidney beans or navy beans, all sorts of beans. Beans are a great source of protein, and they also have a lot of fiber in them. They're a good source of iron and lots of B vitamins. So beans are a great choice for an inexpensive protein source. I typically get my beans out of the bulk bins at the co-op or health food type stores, and you can get them dried and just soak them and boil them yourself. It's very easy. It's not a lot of work. All you need to do is, when you get home in the evening, take the amount of dried beans that you want and put them into a bowl of water and put them in the refrigerator overnight. In the morning, drain off the water and replace it with some fresh water. Put it back in the refrigerator and head off to do whatever you're doing for the day. When you get home in the evening, drain off that water and put them in some fresh cooking water. And depending on the size of the bean, it can take just a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, to cook them up to the texture that you like. Or if it's a real large bean, it might take 20 or 30 minutes to really cook that bean up to the softness or the texture that you like for that. If you find that you don't remember to soak the beans and you want to make a bean dish, just look for canned beans in the store. Quite often you can find sales on canned beans and still get beans pretty reasonably. Beans are a great nutrition choice for people with diabetes because they have protein and they have fiber, so they help to slow the rise in blood sugar after you eat a meal. So it's a great thing to include. You can put beans in all sorts of different recipes. You can put beans in soups, which gives the soup a lot of body and nutrition. Today we're using beans as a snack by making a hummus. You can put beans in a wrap to make a sandwich, or add them to casseroles, or mix them with different grains. You can make a cold salad by chopping up some cold vegetables and putting an olive oil and vinegar dressing on that, and then you've got a nice cold bean salad. So beans are really nutritious, inexpensive, and easy to use. Another great way to eat a nutritious food that is inexpensive is to use grains that you would find in the bulk bin again, or you can find them prepackaged. What I have here is just some quinoa, and this is a really nutritious grain which is kind of like millet. It's what most people would call birdseed, just little tiny grains, but it is packed with nutrition. It's high in protein, and it's a complete protein, which means that it's similar to meat in that it has all the amino acids we need to process to make protein in our bodies. It also is a great source of iron and zinc and fiber, and it's very quick and easy to cook, as are most of the bulk grains, things like barley, millet, buckwheat, all different kinds of grains that you can get in the bulk bins and cook up as side dishes. The way to cook those is quite simply to boil them in water, and many of the grains use a 2-to-1 ratio to cook in, 2 parts liquid to 1 part grain. And something like quinoa cooks up very quickly in about 15 to 20 minutes, and other small grains also very quick to cook. You can make them more interesting by cooking them in a chicken broth or a beef broth or a vegetable broth to add a little bit more flavor. Or you can cook them in water, and then after they're cooked, you might saute them in a little olive oil and some mushrooms or some chopped up vegetables, once again, whatever kind of vegetables you need to get rid of. When you shop for your vegetables, a lot of times we get really inspired when we go to the produce stand and we end up buying too much. So it's a great waste of money to have to throw away all those vegetables that sit in that bottom bin of your refrigerator. So as you're cooking, really think about ways that you can use up those extra vegetables and not have to throw them away. Another great way to save money when you're shopping is to think about your baked goods. It's so much cheaper to make your own baked goods than to buy them in the store, and typically the ingredients are much better. Take, for instance, a loaf of bread. A loaf of bread, if you look at a nice hearty whole grain loaf of bread in the store, you would pay at least $2.50 to $3 and upwards to $5 for a loaf of bread in the store. A lot of this bread has a lot of extra salt, and some of it has a lot of extra sugar added. When you make bread at home, it's actually very easy and doesn't cost nearly as much as what you would pay in the store, and you can control your ingredients more. You can decide how much whole wheat flour you want to use. I like the King Arthur white whole wheat flour because it has a really mild taste, but you still get a whole grain product. And you can also control the sodium in your bread and make a much lower sodium product. And your bread will be delicious without all the added salt that commercial breads would have. Take cookies and crackers for an example. You can make these at home very inexpensively and very easily and save a lot of money from what you would pay for commercial products. And a lot of the commercial cookies and crackers will have partially hydrogenated oils in them, which means that you're getting trans fats in your diet. Trans fats tend to be the most dangerous fats for heart health because they tend to clog up the arteries more than any other types of fats. So you'll be doing much better health-wise baking at home and saving a lot of money. When you bake cookies or when you bake sweet breads, you can also replace some of the oils with some applesauce or some pureed prunes or other types of fruit, and that adds more fiber and more nutrition to your baked good, and it also helps to cut back a little bit on the calories and fat in your product. So let's get started with our hummus. Typically, if we buy hummus in the store, we spend a lot of money. Hummus is a great snack, and it's really a great sandwich spread. It's something that you can put in to a wrap along with lots of vegetables. We're going to make hummus today and just make a hummus dip that we can dip vegetables into. It's a great idea to have for a snack for when you get home from work or when the kids get home from school, to have that already and sitting out when people are really hungry. We tend to overeat when we're really hungry, and so if we overeat on carrots and hummus, we're really not taking in a whole lot of calories, but we're getting a lot of really good nutrition. So for our hummus, we're going to include 2 cups of chickpeas, and these have already been soaked and cooked, or if you're in a hurry and you want to use the canned chickpeas, 2 cups of canned chickpeas. We are going to add some tahini to this recipe, and this is just ground up sesame seeds. That's what tahini is. It adds a lot of smoothness to the hummus and also a nice sesame nutty flavor. Because tahini is a natural product that is just ground sesame seeds and it has no hydrogenated oils added to it, it needs to be stirred before we use it because the oil will separate to the top. This is the case with natural peanut butters, which I recommend over the nice creamy smooth peanut butters that you buy commercially, because there are no added hydrogenated oils. If your peanut butter has a label that has the ingredients that say ground peanuts and that's the only ingredient, then that's a great choice for your peanut butter. So try and stay away from the ones that you don't have to mix, because these are a better choice. So we want 1/3 cup of tahini. And you can make all kinds of variations of hummus. You can add roasted red peppers if you like. You can add asparagus. You could add artichoke hearts. We're going to put some raw garlic in today, but I like to make hummus with roasted garlic. And what I do is just take a clove of garlic, or you can use a whole head of garlic, and wrap it in some tin foil and put it in the oven and just roast it for about 10 or 15 minutes. I usually roast it at about 400 degrees for about, depending on the size, maybe about 10 minutes for just a couple of cloves of garlic. I'm going to smash it a little so that the skin will separate easier from the garlic. This is a nice big garlic clove. I don't think we're going to need this whole clove unless you really like garlicky hummus. I think we'll use just half of this really large clove of garlic here. And if you roll your garlic first or smash it first, the skin comes off really easily and nicely. So I'm just going to slice it into little slices here. I don't need to really mince it up well because it's going in the food processor, so it's going to get all ground up anyway. So we have 1/3 cup of tahini and 2 small garlic cloves, or whatever you like for garlic. And next we're going to add some lemon juice. Lemon juice really gives this a nice tart flavor. And we're going to add about a quarter of a cup of lemon juice. You can use a fresh lemon, which is typically available at the produce stand for about 35 cents per lemon. Or you can use some of the already squeezed lemon juice. I prefer not to use the lemon juice from concentrate because it really doesn't have the same nice flavor that the fresh lemon juice does. But you can get containers of fresh squeezed lemon juice in the store if you don't have any lemons available. I like to keep a container of that in the refrigerator because there always seems to be a time when I use a lot of lemons in the kitchen, and so if I happen to be out of fresh lemons, then I have that as a fallback. You could also make a variation on your hummus and use some lime juice or some other citrus type of juice. And once again, if you have some leftover vegetables, you can throw those right into the hummus too. A lot of people like to make hummus with some fresh parsley. And today we're going to garnish our hummus with parsley, but I won't actually put it into the recipe. Okay, we have our quarter cup of lemon juice. I'm just going to take the seeds out here. And some olive oil. Olive oil is going to give it a nice smooth texture. This is another reason that I like to make hummus from scratch rather than from the store, because the store bought hummuses typically have quite a lot of olive oil added, and this way we can control how much olive oil we are adding. So we're going to add just 1 tablespoon of olive oil. When I choose olive oil, I choose my olive oil based on what I want to do for the recipe. This is a good all-purpose olive oil. I always use a first press olive oil because that is a first mechanical press of the olives. So it gives me the best flavor and a nice rich green color. I use that for recipes where I need more of an olive oil flavor. I would never use a light olive oil or an extra light olive oil because these are the third or fourth presses of the olive, and they are a chemical extraction rather than a mechanical press of the olives. So you lose the nice rich green color and you lose a lot of the rich olive oil flavor. So in recipes where I don't want an olive oil flavor, I'll typically use a milder oil, like maybe canola oil. And it's a lot less expensive than olive oil and just as healthy. Okay, so we have our olive oil, garlic. We're going to add just a little bit of salt to that to give it a little extra flavor. Typically, commercial hummus will have more salt. We're going to use just about 1/4 teaspoon here rather than a whole teaspoon of salt. The lemon juice is what we're going to rely on to give us the flavor that we want. So we don't need a whole lot of salt in the recipe because the lemon juice is going to take the place of the salt. Okay. So we'll process up our hummus here. And you can blend it for as long as you like, but we will blend it until it's nice and smooth. You might like it a little bit chunkier, but I like mine pretty smooth, so we're going to If you find that your beans are a little dry and your hummus is coming out not as creamy as you want and it's a little bit on the dry side, just add a little bit of water to it, and that will help to smooth it out and make it a little creamier. A lot of times when a recipe is dry, we're tempted to add oil to it, but really just some water would do the trick. Okay, this looks good. It's just the right consistency. So you can see how really quick and easy that is to make some hummus, where we would normally spend for this amount of hummus in the store $4 or $5 for a container of hummus. This is a much cheaper way to do it. You can have it done in 5 minutes and ready to go. We're going to garnish our hummus with a little bit of paprika on the top, just to give it a nice color. Another tip for saving money at the grocery store is to buy all of your spices out of the bulk bins at the health food store or the co-op. You will spend pennies on the dollar compared to buying spices in containers. And they tend to rotate these spices quite quickly, and so you always end up getting nice fresh spices. If you find that your spices have been in the cupboard a little too long and they're starting to lose their flavor, just take them and put them in a saute pan on the stove. Just a dry saute pan. Put your spice in the small pan and just saute it really lightly and roast it over the stove. And that will really bring out the flavor and the aroma of your spices. So we can garnish this also with a little bit of fresh parsley, since we didn't put that into the recipe. And there we have our fresh hummus. Really quick and easy. 5 minutes, much cheaper than buying hummus in the store. Another tip for saving money at the grocery store is to think about how much you spend on beverages. And think about the great nutrition quality of just water or milk. And try to skip the sodas or the sugar sweetened beverages, the sugary juice drinks. And even juice itself can be quite expensive. You get a lot better nutrition from eating the whole fruit than you do out of drinking the juice, and you can save a lot of calories and get more fiber and some great antioxidants from eating the whole fruit. So that's another great way to save some money at the grocery store. I think that we've covered most of the ideas for today, so I hope you enjoy getting creative at the grocery store and make your list tonight and think about your plan for the week. Thank you.